The night was freezing as I stood on our front porch, my thin jacket doing almost nothing to keep me warm against the icy December wind. My dad's words echoed in my head, each one hitting like a slap. "Get out," he had said, his voice shaking with anger. "You're no child of mine. My name is Mia Carter," and at 17, I became exactly what my strict parents feared: pregnant, unmarried, and, in their eyes, a disgrace to our family. Through my teary eyes, I saw my mom standing by the window, her face full of disappointment. She didn't say anything, she just turned away and let the curtain fall. That was all I needed to see. I was on my own now. I had grabbed whatever I could, some clothes, my phone charger, and the pregnancy test that had changed everything. My fingers rested on my stomach, even though I couldn't feel anything yet. I wasn't just thinking about myself anymore. As for my boyfriend, Jake, he vanished the moment I told him. No calls, no messages, just gone. He blocked me on everything, a complete coward. I walked down the street I had known all my life, past the big oak tree I used to climb and the flower beds my mom loved so much. It felt like I was leaving my entire past behind. The streetlights flickered above me as my frozen tears ran down my cheeks. Hours later, I was curled up on a park bench, trying to stay warm, when Mrs. Thompson, our elderly neighbor, found me. She had always been kind, sneaking me cookies as a kid and waving at me from her garden. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered after I told her everything through my chattering teeth. "Come inside before you freeze." Her small apartment smelled like cinnamon tea. She didn't scold me, she didn't ask why or how, she just listened as I cried. How would I raise a baby? Where would I live? What about school? The questions felt endless. "One step at a time," she said, wrapping a warm blanket around me. "Tonight, you sleep. Tomorrow, we figure things out." That night, on her lumpy old couch, I dreamed of my mom. In my dream, she was in her garden, trimming her roses, but as I watched, the flowers crumbled to dust in her hands. I woke up with tears on my face. The next few weeks were a blur. Mrs. Thompson helped me enroll in a program for pregnant teens so I could keep studying and get the help I needed. I got a job at a diner, working early mornings before classes. My feet ached every day, but I saved every dollar for my baby. My parents never called. I saw my mom at the store once, but she turned and walked the other way. My dad's car sped up whenever he passed me on the sidewalk. It was like I had disappeared from their world. At school, I met other girls in the same situation. We shared stories over school lunches, talked about our fears, and reminded each other we weren't alone. Something unexpected happened. As my belly grew, so did my strength. Every tiny kick inside me reminded me that I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I pushed harder in school, determined to graduate. My boss noticed my hard work and gave me a small raise. One night, while studying for a test in my tiny rented room, I felt it, the first flutter of movement. It was so soft I almost missed it, like butterfly wings against my skin. I placed my hand on my belly and whispered through happy tears. "Hi, little one, I'm your mom." It was a girl. At the ultrasound, the technician pointed out her tiny features, her little hands, her heartbeat, her perfect nose. I asked for extra printouts, hoping maybe my parents would want to see them. They stayed in my bag for weeks before I finally threw them away. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. Mrs. Thompson helped me get ready for my baby's arrival. She taught me how to knit tiny hats, her old hands moving slowly but steadily. She told me stories of raising her own kids and the struggles she had faced. "Life only gives you what you can handle," she said, "even when it feels impossible." The contractions started during my final exam. I pushed through the pain, determined to finish. My water broke in the taxi on the way to the hospital. 12 hours later, I held my daughter for the first time. Lily Grace Carter was born at 6:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, weighing 7 pounds, 2 ounces. She had a full head of dark hair, and my mother's eyes. As I traced her tiny fingers, memorizing every inch of her perfect little face, I knew one thing for sure. We were going to be okay. I made her a promise. "You will never doubt that you're loved," I whispered. "Never." Mrs. Thompson was my only visitor at the hospital. She brought homemade cookies and cooed over Lily in her soft, gentle voice. The nurses gave me sympathetic looks when no family showed up, but I barely noticed. My whole world had shrunk to the tiny baby in my arms. Graduation came 2 weeks later. I walked across the stage with Lily strapped to my chest in a baby carrier, her warmth a reminder of everything I had fought for. No one in the audience was there for me, but the girls from my program cheered loud enough to make up for it. That summer passed in a blur of sleepless nights and endless diaper changes. I moved into a tiny studio apartment, just big enough for a bed and Lily's crib. The walls were thin, and the neighborhood wasn't great, but it was ours. Every morning, I woke before dawn to feed Lily before dropping her off at the daycare next to the diner. The owner, Maria, had a soft spot for young moms and gave me a discount. I worked extra shifts whenever I could, saving every penny for our future. Sometimes, on my way home, I passed my parents' house. The lights were always on, shadows moving behind the curtains, life continuing as if I had never been part of it. Once, I saw my mom outside in the garden. Our eyes met for just a second. She looked older, tired, but before I could lift my hand to wave, she turned away, just like the night she let me go. That night, I cried myself to sleep, Lily's soft breathing the only sound in the tiny apartment. But in the morning, I got up, put on my uniform, and kept going. Because that's what mothers do. The years passed, each one bringing new struggles and victories, but that first year, the year I lost my family but found myself, that was the hardest. And every night, as I rocked Lily to sleep, I wondered if my mother ever thought of us, if she missed the granddaughter she had never met. I never imagined it would take 15 years before I'd hear her voice again. And that when the phone finally rang, everything would change. 15 years is a long time. I had worked my way up from waitress to restaurant manager, and eventually, I saved enough to open my own cafe. Lily had grown into a smart, confident teenager, filling our home with music and laughter. The night the call came, I was at the kitchen table, going over the cafe's monthly expenses, while Lily practiced violin in her room. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello? Mia?" The voice was older, weaker than I remembered, but I knew it instantly. My mother. My hand tightened around the phone as old memories rushed back, the cold night I was kicked out, the years of silence, the pain. "Your father is dying," she said, her voice breaking. "Cancer, the doctors say he has weeks, maybe days. He's asking for you." And Lily. I sat there, frozen. "He wants to meet his granddaughter before." Her voice trailed off. From Lily's room, the violin music stopped. A moment later, her footsteps echoed in the hallway. "Mom, who's on the phone?" I turned away, gripping the phone tighter. "Just a work call, sweetie, keep practicing." My mother must have heard her voice because she made a small, choked sound. "She sounds lovely." "She is," I said firmly, "no thanks to you." The silence that followed was heavy. Years of unspoken words filled the space between us. Finally, my mother whispered, "I know. I was wrong, Mia, so terribly wrong." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. How many nights had I dreamed of hearing those words? How many times had I imagined this moment? But now that it was here, all I felt was exhaustion. "I need time to think," I said, "and I need to talk to Lily. This isn't just about me anymore." "Of course," my mother replied quickly, "just, please, don't wait too long." After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, my cafe paperwork forgotten. Memories washed over me, the night I told them I was pregnant, the disgust on my father's face, my mother's silence, worse than his anger. Lily appeared in the doorway, violin still in hand. At 15, she looked so much like I had, at her age, the same dark eyes and stubborn chin. But where I had been uncertain, Lily carried herself with quiet confidence. "That wasn't a work call, was it?" she asked, setting her violin down. "You're crying." I touched my cheek, surprised to find it wet. "No, it wasn't." "Come sit down, sweetheart. There's something we need to talk about." She listened quietly as I told her about my parents, about that night 15 years ago, and about all the things I'd never had the courage to share before. Her face remained thoughtful, processing each detail with a maturity that made my heart ache. "So, my grandfather is dying," she said when I finished, "and he wants to meet me?" I nodded, watching her carefully. "Yes. But it's completely your choice. We don't owe them anything." Lily was quiet for a long moment, absently plucking at a loose thread on her sleeve. "I want to go," she said finally. "Not for them, but for you. You deserve closure, Mom." I pulled her into a tight hug, marveling at how wise my daughter had become. "When did you get so smart?" She grinned against my shoulder. Must be all those books you make me read. The next morning, I called my mother back. Her answer was immediate, as if she'd been sitting by the phone waiting. "We'll come," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Tomorrow afternoon. But I have conditions." "Anything," she breathed. "First, this is about Lily. If Dad says one word, one single word, to make her feel unwelcome or unwanted, we leave. Second, I won't pretend the past didn't happen. No swept under the rug family reunion. And third," I took a deep breath, "you need to hear our story. All of it. Everything you missed while you were pretending we didn't exist." There was a pause, then a soft, "Yes. Of course." I spent that night going through old photos, Lily's first steps, her first day of school, dance recitals, violin concerts, 15 years of memories they had chosen to miss. Each picture was a reminder of how much we'd accomplished on our own but also of how much they had lost. Mrs. Thompson had passed away 5 years ago, but I still had the first baby hat she knitted for Lily. I packed it with the photos, a tangible piece of the woman who had been more family to us than our own blood. The drive to my parents' house the next day felt surreal. The neighborhood hadn't changed much, same neat lawns, same trimmed hedges. My mother's roses still bloomed in the front garden, though they looked a bit wild now, less carefully tended. Lily squeezed my hand as we walked up the familiar path to the front door. "Are you ready?" I looked at my beautiful, strong daughter and felt a surge of pride. "Ready." The door opened before we could knock. My mother stood there, smaller than I remembered, her hair now more gray than black. Her hands trembled as she reached toward me, then dropped to her sides. "Amanda," she whispered. "You came." Her eyes moved to Lily, widening slightly. I saw the recognition there, the sharp intake of breath as she noticed all the ways my daughter resembled her younger self. "Would you like to come in?" she asked, stepping aside. I nodded, guiding Lily forward with a hand on her back. As we crossed the threshold, I couldn't help but remember the last time I'd walked through this door, young, scared, and alone. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't that helpless teenager anymore. And this time, I wasn't alone. The inside of my childhood home felt smaller than I remembered. Family photos still lined the hallway walls, but they stopped abruptly at my senior year, the last one taken before everything fell apart. It was like time had frozen in this house, preserving the moment just before their perfect family shattered. My father was in the living room, propped up in a hospital bed that seemed out of place among the familiar furniture. The strong, imposing man who had thrown me out 15 years ago was gone, replaced by someone frail and diminished. His eyes, though, were the same, dark and intense as they fixed on Lily. "So," he said, his voice rough. "This is my granddaughter." Lily stepped forward, her chin lifted slightly. "I'm Lily," she said clearly. "It's nice to meet you, though I wish it hadn't taken so long." I saw my father flinch at her words, but a ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Direct, like your mother," he said. "Please, sit down. Both of you." My mother hurried to arrange chairs, her movements nervous and jerky. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. Finally, my father spoke again. "I owe you both an apology," he said, "though I know it's far too late." 15 years too late, I agreed, my voice steady. "Do you know what it was like being 17, pregnant, and homeless in winter? Having to rely on the kindness of neighbors because my own parents threw me away?" My mother made a small, pained sound. "Amanda, we were trying to." "To what?" I cut her off. "Protect the family name? Teach me a lesson? Well, congratulations. The lesson I learned was that I could never count on either of you." I pulled out the stack of photos I brought, spreading them across the bed. "This is what you missed: Lily's first steps, her first day of kindergarten, every Christmas, every birthday, every milestone you chose not to be part of." They leaned forward, hungry for these glimpses of the life they'd ignored. My mother's hand trembled as she touched a photo of Lily in her first ballet costume. "You look just like your mother did at that age," she whispered. "I wouldn't know," Lily replied quietly. "I don't have any pictures of Mom from back then." The silence that followed was deafening. My father picked up a photo of Lily's elementary school graduation, where she'd won the Academic Achievement Award. "You did well with her," he said finally. "Better than we did with you." "I did everything you said I couldn't," I said. "Finished high school, built a career, raised an amazing daughter, all without your help or approval. And I own my own business now." "The cafe on Maple Street?" "That's mine. I worked my way up from waitress to owner." "Funny how the daughter you were so ashamed of turned out to be successful after all." My father's face crumpled, and for the first time in my life, I saw tears in his eyes. "I was wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "So terribly wrong." Lily stood up suddenly. "I have a violin competition next week," she announced. "First chair in the youth symphony. Will you come, grandmother?" My mother's face lit up, even as fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, of course." Over the next few weeks, as my father's condition deteriorated, we began the slow, careful work of rebuilding. It wasn't easy, but it was something. Because sometimes, 15 years isn't too long to wait for a second chance.